There's a certain kind of silence that only women truly understand. It's the silence that happens when you've given and given and given, only to realize that no one is really giving back. A silence that isn't peaceful. It's the kind that echoes late at night, when the phone doesn't ring, when the message doesn't come, when the love you've been pouring out feels like it's vanished into thin air. You feel it in your chest, in that tightness, in that whisper that asks, why am I always the one waiting, hoping, proving? Maybe you've been here before. Maybe you're here right now, sitting with this invisible ache, wondering if you're still seen, still wanted, still enough. It's a strange emptiness, isn't it? Because even when you know, logically, that your worth isn't tied to someone else's attention, the heart still aches for confirmation, for presence, for someone who chooses you, effortlessly, like you've chosen them, time and time again. But there's a truth, a sacred truth, that very few women were ever taught. Louise Hay used to say, every word we speak is an affirmation. Every single word you whisper, even in your own mind, holds the power to shape how others respond to you, and how the universe orchestrates what comes into your life. Words are not just sounds, they are frequencies, codes, invitations. And what most of us were never told is that the words we speak don't just influence how men hear us, they influence how they feel about us, about who we are, about whether we feel like a safe place or an endless chase, whether we feel like a gift or like a transaction, whether we awaken admiration or take ourselves out of the game before it even starts. Marianne Williamson teaches something powerful. Real seduction happens when we speak from love, not from lack. And maybe, deep down, you've felt the difference. There's the kind of woman who speaks hoping to be chosen, and there's the kind of woman who speaks from the knowing that she has already chosen herself. One creates distance, the other creates magnetism. And here's the most beautiful part. This has nothing to do with playing games, nothing to do with pretending. It has everything to do with energy, with presence, with the vibration behind the words you speak. Because a woman who speaks from her worth becomes unforgettable, not because she tries to be, but because the frequency of her voice reminds others, and herself, that her presence is a privilege, not a prize. So maybe this isn't about what he does, or doesn't do. Maybe it's about how you speak your life into existence, how you embody the truth that you are not here to chase love, but to attract it, not from a place of emptiness, but from a place of wholeness. And when you begin to speak differently, something happens. The air shifts, the dynamic changes. Suddenly, the man who once felt comfortable with his silence feels the absence of your energy. Suddenly, the one who thought you'd always be waiting wonders if he still has access to you, because something has shifted, not in him, but in you. This is not magic. This is self-love, spoken aloud. This is energy, crystallized into words. This is the moment you stop asking, "Am I enough?" and start declaring, "I am more than enough," whether you see it or not. And from this place, from this sacred space of remembrance, you begin to discover the power of certain phrases, not because they manipulate, not because they control, but because they are declarations of your own truth, declarations that say to the world, "I know who I am, I know what I deserve, and I trust that the right people, the right love, will always recognize that." And perhaps that's where everything begins to change. And when you truly begin to understand this, when it sinks beneath the surface of your mind and rests deep within your body, you realize that the power has always been with you. It was never about waiting for someone else to choose you. It was always about the energy you bring into every room, every conversation, every connection. And that energy begins with your words. Louise Hay was very clear about this. What you affirm, you create. Every sentence, every thought, every whisper you speak is an order placed with the universe. Whether you realize it or not, your words are shaping the reality you're living in and the way others experience you. And perhaps, without even knowing, you've been speaking in ways that push love away, when what you truly want is to draw it close. Think about it. How many times have you caught yourself saying things like, "No one ever stays," or "I'm always too much," or even silently believing, "I have to prove I'm worthy of being loved"? Each of these statements, each of these silent agreements, is an energetic contract, a message not only to yourself, but to every person you meet, including him. Because whether we admit it or not, men don't just respond to what you do. They respond to how you carry yourself, to the frequency behind your words, to whether you feel like someone who needs to be saved, or someone who chooses herself over and over again. One creates pressure, the other creates pull, and that's why certain phrases, certain ways of speaking, hold so much power, because they aren't just clever words, they are vibrations, statements that signal to him, I am not someone you can take for granted. I am not someone who waits in the shadows for breadcrumbs of attention. I am someone who knows her worth, and because of that, I become the woman you cannot forget. It's not about being cold. It's not about being distant. It's about embodying a truth so deep that it shifts how you speak, how you move, how you engage. Suddenly, your words don't come from fear. They come from sovereignty, from the knowing that love is not something you chase. Love is something you attract, by being rooted in who you are. And when a man feels this, really feels it, something primal awakens in him. Not because you manipulated him, but because, for perhaps the first time, he meets a woman whose energy feels different. A woman who doesn't beg, who doesn't shrink, who doesn't lose herself trying to be chosen. A woman who whispers, with every word, every glance, every silence, I choose me, and if you wish to be part of my world, you will rise to meet me there. This is the power of the feminine word. Not as a weapon, but as a mirror, a reflection of your own inner landscape, because when the inside shifts, the outside cannot help but shift too. And maybe, just maybe, it was never about whether he chooses you, but whether you've finally chosen yourself. And this brings us to something most women were never taught, the magnetic power of words rooted in sovereignty, words that don't beg, words that don't chase, words that don't ask for permission to be valued, but instead, declare it. There is one phrase that holds more power than most women can imagine. It's simple, elegant, and when spoken from the right energy, it creates a shift so subtle, yet so undeniable, that it touches something deep inside the masculine psyche. The phrase is, I'm not easy to impress. Let that settle for a moment. I'm not easy to impress. Not because you're arrogant, not because you're trying to play hard to get, but because you understand that your attention, your presence, your energy is sacred. It's not given away freely to anyone who simply shows up. It's reserved for those who are willing and capable of meeting you at the level of your worth. When a man hears this, not just hears it, but feels it, something powerful happens. Instinctively, his mind shifts from, I've got her, she's here, waiting, to, wait, I need to step up. I need to show her that I am worthy of her time, her attention, her presence. It awakens the part of him that wants to pursue, to prove, to earn, not because you demanded it, but because your energy made it clear that you are not here to settle for less than what honors you. This is not about games. This is not manipulation. This is truth, because when you've spent a lifetime bending, shrinking, hoping to be chosen, this phrase becomes an anchor, a reminder, a boundary spoken in the softest, most graceful way, yet felt with undeniable strength. It tells him, I am not desperate, I am discerning, and being in my world is something that is earned, not assumed. And here's the beautiful paradox. When you no longer seek to impress, you become impressive. When you no longer try to prove your worth becomes undeniable, because the woman who is not easily impressed is the woman who knows that her value was never meant to be negotiated. And from this place, this grounded, radiant place of knowing, your words become invitations, not to convince anyone of your value, but to allow those who are truly aligned with it to rise and meet you there. And something beautiful happens when a woman stops centering her life around whether or not someone chooses her, when she no longer places her happiness, her joy, her sense of worth in someone else's hands. Her energy shifts, her presence shifts, the way the world responds to her shifts. That's why the second phrase holds such potent, magnetic power. I love my life, with or without anyone. This is not just a sentence. This is an energetic declaration, a statement that tells the universe and every man who crosses your path that your happiness, your joy, your fulfillment is not dependent on anyone outside of you. It's a subtle but powerful frequency, one that says, being with me is a privilege, not a requirement for my happiness. And when a man feels this, when he senses that you are not sitting there, waiting for him to fill the spaces within you, something primal ignites. He realizes that being part of your life is a gift, not a given. Because whether we like it or not, people sense when we are anchored in our own joy versus when we are desperately searching for someone to rescue us from ourselves. And the truth is, the woman who genuinely loves her own life becomes irresistible. Not because she tries to be, but because wholeness is magnetic. Louise Hay taught us, the more you love yourself, the less you need others to validate you. And maybe that's the most profound shift of all. Because when you stop waiting for someone else to make your life feel full, you become the woman who doesn't just attract love. You attract the right kind of love, the kind that respects, that honors, that rises to meet you. This isn't about pretending. It's not about faking independence while secretly hoping someone will complete you. It's about embodying the truth that your life is already rich, already beautiful, already full of moments, experiences, joys, and sacred spaces that no man can ever replace. And from that place, your energy whispers, I'm open to love, but I'm not starving for it. And that is where the real magnetism lives. And as your energy shifts, something else naturally emerges. A quiet power, a presence that no longer feels rushed, no longer feels desperate to fill silence or to secure someone's attention. You start to realize that space is sacred, that pause, that moment of not reacting instantly, holds more power than words ever could. This is where the third phrase becomes almost like a secret key, a key that unlocks a completely different dynamic. Let me think about it. Simple, elegant, and yet profoundly powerful. Because how many times have you felt that urge, that automatic yes, that reflex of agreeing, accommodating, saying yes before you've even asked yourself, do I actually want this? Somewhere along the way, you were conditioned to believe that being agreeable, being easygoing, being instantly available, made you more lovable, more chosen, more safe. But the truth is, when you pause, when you say, let me think about it, what you're really saying is, I matter, my feelings matter, my time matters, my energy matters. You're reminding both yourself and anyone listening that you are not living on autopilot. You are a conscious woman who makes choices from alignment, not from fear. And here's what happens. That small, graceful pause, that space between the question and the answer, creates something magnetic. It awakens curiosity. It invites pursuit. Because suddenly, you are not predictable. You are not instantly available. You are not someone who simply reacts. You are someone who responds from her own center. When a man hears, let me think about it, it reminds him that your yes is valuable, that your agreement is a gift, not an obligation. And whether he consciously realizes it or not, he feels the difference. He senses that he cannot just assume access to you, that there is a process, a sacred discernment, before you offer yourself, your time, your energy, your presence, to anyone. This is not about withholding. It's not about games. It's about reclaiming the space between stimulus and response, reclaiming the power of the pause, because in that space is where self-respect lives, where sovereignty lives, where your magnetism quietly, gracefully, expands. And perhaps the most attractive thing in the world is a woman who knows how to hold her own pause, and something even deeper begins to unfold when you understand that you were never meant to chase anything, especially not love. That desperate energy, that constant reaching, that exhausting effort to prove yourself worthy has never been your true nature. Somewhere deep within, you've always known this. You've always felt that love, real love, doesn't come through chasing. It comes through alignment. This is where the fourth phrase becomes more than just words. It becomes a vibration, a declaration, a way of being. I don't chase, I attract. When spoken, not from ego, not from defense, but from truth. This phrase shifts the entire dynamic between you and the world. Louise Hay would say, "This is not just an affirmation. This is your reality choosing itself through you." Because when you speak this, when you embody this, you're not sending out a message of arrogance. You're sending out a message of self-trust. A message that says, "I trust life to bring me what matches my worth. I trust myself to receive, not to beg. I trust that what's meant for me will always find its way." And here's what's extraordinary. When a man feels this energy, it's not rejection he feels. It's not coldness. It's a magnetic pull, a quiet realization that you are not someone who anxiously waits by the phone. You are not someone who diminishes herself to be chosen. You are someone who knows that your presence, your energy, your love is not something anyone can just take. It's something they are invited into when they show up with presence, with integrity, with intention. This frequency, this energy of "I don't chase, I attract," is the opposite of game playing. It's the opposite of manipulation. It is truth, because the feminine doesn't run after. The feminine receives. She calls in. She magnetizes, not from force, but from radiance. And perhaps that's the shift that changes everything. Because the moment you stop chasing, you become the prize. Not a prize to be won, but a sacred presence to be honored. And the man who is meant to see this will feel it, not because you told him to, but because your energy leaves him no other option. And the deeper this truth settles into your bones, the more natural it becomes to anchor into the next sacred phrase, one that not only communicates power, but shifts the entire foundation of how you move through relationships. I trust myself to choose what's best for me. This is not just about trusting others. This is about returning the trust to yourself. Because how many times have you doubted that inner voice? How many times have you overridden your intuition, ignored the red flags, silenced the knowing in your own body, just to avoid losing someone? How many times have you betrayed yourself for the illusion of connection? But when you speak these words, "I trust myself to choose what's best for me," everything begins to realign. You're no longer outsourcing your power, your clarity, your decisions to anyone outside of you. You're no longer asking, even silently, "Do you think I'm enough? Do you approve? Am I worthy of being chosen?" Because the moment you reclaim this trust, the entire dynamic shifts. He feels it. Whether he understands it consciously or not, he feels it. He feels the subtle but undeniable shift from a woman who waits for validation to a woman who realizes, "My approval of you is far more important than your approval of me." This energy is irresistible, not because it's dominant, not because it's controlling, but because it's sovereign. A woman who trusts herself, who listens to herself, who stands in the quiet knowing of her own worth, cannot be manipulated, cannot be breadcrumbed, cannot be strung along. It's as if every cell in your body whispers, "I know who I am, and if you wish to be part of my world, it will be because you honor me, because you rise, because you meet me here, where self-respect lives." This is the kind of energy that doesn't need to shout, doesn't need to explain. It's felt, deeply, and the men who cannot meet it fall away, not because you push them, but because the frequency you hold no longer aligns with anything that diminishes you. And the ones who can rise, the ones who are ready, will feel that pull, that beautiful, powerful pull toward a woman who has finally and fully chosen herself. And something extraordinary happens when a woman no longer tries to fit into everyone's expectations, when she releases the exhausting need to be liked by everyone, to be chosen by everyone, to be the one who bends, molds, and twists herself just to belong. There is a sacred liberation that rises when you finally breathe and say, "I'm not for everyone, and that's fine." This is not a wall. It's not defensiveness. It's freedom. It's the knowing that your worth, your beauty, your essence, is not up for public debate. It's not negotiable, and it's certainly not something you hand over, hoping someone will confirm it for you. When you speak this truth, something incredible shifts in the energy between you and any man in your life. Because suddenly, the dynamic is no longer about whether you fit into his world. It becomes about whether he is capable, worthy, and ready to step into yours. This phrase, "I'm not for everyone, and that's fine," removes the invisible leash, the one that kept you tethered to waiting, to hoping, to performing, to anxiously wondering, "Am I enough for him?" Instead, it places the responsibility back where it belongs. It whispers, "I am whole, I am complete, and whether or not you see my value changes nothing about my truth." And here's what's so fascinating. When a man feels this energy, something inside him wakes up, because men are not drawn to what feels desperate. They are drawn to what feels rare, what feels sovereign, what feels self-contained. A woman who doesn't beg to be chosen, but instead chooses herself, becomes the rarest thing in the world. This isn't about pushing him away. It's about letting go of anyone or anything that was never meant to stay. It's about holding yourself with such reverence that you no longer ask, "Why doesn't he want me?" but instead wonder, "Do I even want someone who cannot see me, truly, as I am?" There is peace in this, a holy kind of peace, the kind that no longer grasps, no longer reaches, no longer aches for permission to be valuable. Because the moment you realize you are not for everyone is the exact moment you become magnetic to the ones who were always meant to find you. There is a subtle alchemy in the way these 6 phrases work together. They are not just words. They are a dance of energy, intention, and truth that speaks to the deepest parts of both feminine and masculine souls. They create a space where desire is born, not from need, but from presence, not from chasing, but from choosing. Each phrase opens a door. Each phrase shifts a vibration, and together, they create a new story. A story where you are not the one waiting in the shadows, hoping to be seen, but the one who stands in the light of her own worth, shining so brightly that to ignore her would be to deny the sun itself. Psychology teaches us that desire is rooted in the unconscious mind. What these phrases do is speak directly to that unconscious, without words needing to explain. They bypass the mind's chatter, the doubts, the insecurities, and tap into something primal, something undeniable. From an energetic perspective, these declarations carry the frequency of love, not the desperate kind, but the sovereign kind. The love that says, "I am whole, I am complete, and from this place, I invite connection that honors me." This frequency disrupts old patterns of neediness, dependence, and self-doubt. When you embody these truths in your speech, your posture, your gaze, something inside you shifts. The nervousness dissolves, the fear quiets, and a deep sense of peace and power rises, because you realize your value has nothing to do with his approval. It has everything to do with your own knowing, and the most beautiful thing is that this shift doesn't close doors. It opens the right ones, the doors to men who are ready to see you, to respect you, to cherish you. So the question is not about how to make a man chase you. It's about how to make yourself whole enough that chasing becomes unnecessary, that attraction becomes natural, that love comes, not as a rescue, but as a mutual celebration of 2 whole souls choosing each other. There is a profound wisdom in realizing that seduction, true seduction, begins not in the eyes of another, but in the mirror of your own soul. Louise Hay reminded us that the point of power is always in the present moment. This means that the power to change how love shows up in your life is always available now, not in the past, not in the future, but here, in this breath, in this word. Marianne Williamson offers us a mirror to look deeper. The only real failure in life is the failure to be yourself. How many times have you hidden parts of yourself, your dreams, your fears, your truth, just to be more lovable? How many times have you shrunk into the shadows, hoping someone would come find you there? But what if the real magnetism comes from showing up fully as you are? What if the secret to making any man chase you is not in changing who you are, but in embracing yourself so completely that your very presence becomes irresistible? When your words come from that place of self-love, sovereignty, and truth, they become more than just phrases. They become declarations. Declarations that say, "I am whole, I am chosen, I choose myself first." And in choosing yourself first, you invite the world to honor you as you are. The woman who speaks with this kind of clarity doesn't need to convince. She doesn't need to chase. She simply stands in her light, steady, radiant, unshakable. And from that place, love flows effortlessly, not because it's forced, not because it's begged for, but because it is a natural consequence of being wholly and deeply herself. So I leave you with this question to hold in your heart. How much longer will you wait to be seen? When the true invitation is to start seeing yourself now. When the power to magnetize love, respect, and desire lies not in the other, but in the sacred words you speak to yourself every day. If this resonated with you, I invite you to subscribe and join this journey of self-love and awakening. And when you're ready, click on the video here to continue deepening your understanding of your own radiant power. Thank you for being here. You are not broken. You are just remembering who you truly are.